With less than a year until the midterm elections, an NBC News survey Monkey poll shows the economy is the #1 issue for Americans. It comes after a controversial speech by President Trump where he blamed the Biden administration for poor economic numbers, even though they left office in January.
The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our Treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down.
This is Lone Star Politics from NBC5 and the Dallas Morning News.
When Congress returns after the holidays, they will attempt health care reform after taxpayer payments ended, causing premiums in Obamacare to increase this next month. Fort Worth Republican Congressman Craig Goldman previews this debate to come and spoke about affordability issues with Gromer.
Well, let's be very clear. When the Trump administration came in at the turn of the new year, we had record inflation. We had the highest gas prices we've seen in decades. We had complete unaffordability all over the United States. So what has the Trump administration, what has U.S. Congress run by the Republicans done since then? One, we tremendously have lowered gas prices. In fact, gas prices are some of the lowest they've been in years. Remember when egg prices in last November and December were through the roof? They came in and lowered those. And the one big beautiful bill we passed this summer, we cut taxes, income taxes on tips. We cut them in other ways. So the effects of the one big beautiful bill are taking effect at the end of this year and certainly will take effect in next year. In fact, there's talk of record income tax refunds next year. So you just can't come in and snap your fingers and change everything in 1 or 2 months. It takes time. And so we definitely have the policies in the Republican Party of making life more affordable all over the United States of America.
Yeah, President Trump has called the whole affordability issue a, quote, Democratic hoax. Is that true? Is it a Democratic hoax?
No, it's not a hoax. I mean, look, we certainly know that Americans are suffering out there, but also let's look at what Americans are suffering out there. You know, Texans have, for example, Texans have one of the lowest gas taxes in the nation at 25 cents a gallon versus California that has a 75 cent tax on a gallon of gas out there. So I think it's also in different regions. I think it's way more unaffordable to live in a blue state than and much more affordable to live in a red state.
What are you going to do specifically to address the problem?
Well, again, we passed one big beautiful bill. We cut no tax on tips. Yeah. We cut taxes, no tax on overtime pay. Boy, that definitely affects our men and women in blue. And so, you know, again, there's no magic policy you can pass. It's a series of policies. Now we're going to tackle health care. We're going to start today with a very important vote to lower health care costs. You know, we can get into that more, but, you know, Obamacare, they said it was Affordable Care Act. It's been nothing but, and it's been completely unaffordable, and everyone agrees with that. There's not one Republican that voted for Obamacare. Every single Democrat did. And now the problem is left in our lap that we have the majority, and we got to fix it. So we're going to start today taking a very important vote in lowering health care costs, and we're going to work on it all next year. We already know starting in January and February, that is our #1 topic we're going to talk about and try to solve. It's a very difficult issue.
Is there a Republican plan yet? Have you seen a plan?
Well, again, there's not going to be one big plan, Gromer. It's going to be a series of what we had the votes to pass. And again, it starts today. So we're going to attempt to lower premiums today by cutting costs. We're going to attempt to make prescription prices more transparent so that people know exactly what they're paying for when they go to a drugstore and get drugs, get prescriptions filled. So it's the little things like that we can certainly shine the light on, but certainly, yes, along the way. And again, it all goes through the committee that I sit on. The Energy and Commerce Committee oversees health care. And so we've been talking and will continue to talk seriously about ways we can lower premiums because they're out of control. And the only people who are benefiting from the healthcare system now are the massive insurance companies.
What are you going to do to reduce energy costs?
Well, funny you should ask. I've actually passed a bill to lower energy costs for homeowners. In fact, I just passed one in committee the other day and hope that it's on the floor early next year. As you may remember, I passed more deregulation bills in the Texas House than anybody in the last decade. I came into Congress hoping to do the exact same thing. I've already had a bill signed by the president to do so, and hopefully I have another one on the way. It passed out of the committee a couple of weeks ago, and it's headed to the House floor. And these are government mandates set by the Biden administration declaring what you have to do, whether it's appliances in your home, whether it's commercial refrigerators that businesses had to have. They were government mandates set by the Biden administration on green energy deals. And guess what happens when you do that? You raise the cost of those appliances. We want the free market. We want the American people. I want every single Texan to decide on their own.
Should the Obama-era subsidies, should they have been allowed to expire? What are you going to do?
They should be allowed to expire, absolutely.
Why?
Look, those subsidies were passed 5 years ago after COVID. Again, yet another bill that every single Democrat voted for and Republicans did not. And so they could have made those permanent because the Democrats were in control when they passed these. They could have made them permanent. They're the ones who put a limit on them.
But that's a tax increase, isn't it? I mean, that's going to... rates are going to go up.
Look, the problem is it affects about 7% of Americans. And so what we want to do when we come back in the new year is set up policies where we lower premiums for all Americans. So, again, these tax cuts were supposed to be permanent in the first place. Democrats even said that. I'm sorry, temporary in the first place. They weren't supposed to be permanent. And so, you know, I don't see those passing the House or the Senate. And so we have to have one big fix to lower premiums for all Americans, not just a few.
The big takeaway for me is that Congressman Goldman is saying affordability is not a hoax. It's important to his district, and he's going to he has to communicate that he cares about this issue.
He does, because you're right. You know, people in Tarrant County are getting hit hard, some of them with affordability issues, ranging from groceries to health care to just insurance, period. And so he has to address it. And his position can't be two things. One, it's a Democratic Party hoax, or let's blame Joe Biden for it. People don't want to hear that. They want to know what your solution is. And one other thing, yeah, Tarrant County may be the largest Republican-controlled county in the country, but it's also a bit of a battleground. Mm-hmm. And he's anticipating, I'm sure, that this could be a tougher re-election than normal because of what the excitement about it on both sides, but an energized Democratic electorate could cause problems in Tarrant County if you're not addressing the right issue.
If things continue to get more and more expensive.
Right.
That's just part of being a good representative, right? You have to say, I know you care about this issue, and I'm going to try and do something about it.
I understand I understand your pain. I understand what you're going through. Here's how we're going to tackle it. But that's the other side of it. He doesn't know yet how they're going to solve some of these issues. It's almost like a trust me, we'll get it done. But there's no evidence that Congress or anybody has really effectively dealt with these things over the years. So that's what we're going to watch, Phil, is will they be able to come up with some solutions? And if they can't come up with something that pleases the voters quickly, we'll see what happens in the midterm elections.
Republicans continue to dominate Texas politics, but what are the chances for change? We'll talk about it next on Lone Star Politics.
This ain't no red state. It's a voter-suppressed state because the math ain't mathing.
Plus, we take a dive into some Texas 2026 races that are now thrust into the national spotlight. You're watching Lone Star Politics. After Republican gerrymandering earlier this year and a round of musical chairs in North Texas, we have major shakeups in races across the state. The race is on to the Texas primary, now less than 3 months away. Gromer and I took a closer look at Democratic candidates in our area. So, Gromer, in early December, this was the status quo from the Democrats, especially in North Texas. Jasmine Crockett was running for re-election in 30. Julie Johnson was running in 32. Mark Vesey was running in 33. State Rep James Tallarico was running against former Congressman Colin Allred in the Senate race. That's what we thought was going to happen.
Yeah, it was relatively calm, kind of boring, actually. We were looking at the Republican side of things the Senate race between John Cornyn and Kim Paxton, anticipating Wesley Hunt getting in, and what that would be like. And with a nod to the Democratic Senate race, the Tallarico Aldrich showdown, that was the big deal for Democrats. Everything else was calm on the D side.
But then redistricting happened, and Republican lawmakers in Austin made Julie Johnson's district very Republican. So it pretty much eliminated her chance to win in District 32. And so these three, we thought, were going to kind of scramble over District 30 and District 33.
Yeah, the first round of political musical chairs, 3 people running for 2 districts, 1 would be out. There was talk, would Crockett run in 33 because they drew a house there. Of course, Julie Johnson wanted to run there. And then the big question, where would Mark Vesey run? Because his district was made Dallas County anchored. They took out all of his Tarrant County base to make the new District 33, and that's what made Julie Johnson interested in running there.
But then what happened, and somewhat added more confusion over the weekend before the filing deadline, Jasmine Crockett decides to run for U.S. Senate. Or at least she sent the signals and then made it official in the filing period, and that changed things.
Yeah, remember the chatter started kind of in the summer, but no one really took it seriously and she was really interested. And then in the fall, strong signals, and then it became clear that she was really interested in it, creating not just a 3-way race, but what would happen if she in fact did run. And of course, a seismic shift in local North Texas and Texas politics, because she did run, and the reaction was really, really fierce.
And so when Jasmine Crockett was in the Senate race, things actually for a brief moment looked kind of simple. Mark Vesey was going to run in District 30.
Right.
And then Julie Johnson could run in District 33.
Right, exactly, because it made sense, because District 33 was closer to looking like what District 32 once looked like. Not the same, but a heavily Democratic district. And District 30 had a swath of Tarrant County voters where Vesey could sort of stage a campaign there, a liftoff there in Tarrant County. The only thing he had to be careful about was a strong Dallas County candidate getting in, because 30 is a historic Dallas district.
And that's what happened when Jasmine Crockett's pastor, Frederick Haynes III, decides to file to run for District 30.
And that wrecked everything for Congressman Vesey, because this is the strong Dallas candidate that he feared, even though he's making his first run for office. But he's Crockett's pastor, 13,000-member church, very popular, very well known in the area. And so that caused Vesey to make a decision: do I run for re-election to Congress, or do I do something else?
And he ended up
initially filing for Tarrant County judge in a primary that put him against Elisa Simmons. Democrats were excited about the prospect of Vesey running, because Tim O'Hara, the Republican, is sort of, for Democrats, public enemy #1 in Tarrant County.
But then this week he said he wasn't going to do
that.
Yeah,
he really wasn't feeling it. He did not want to run for Tarrant County judge. So he exits. He's going to serve out his term, and he becomes the first major casualty in this whole redistricting saga.
And now we have 2 pretty intense fights, because now Julie Johnson's running for District 33, and former Congressman Colin Allred, he dropped out of the Senate race, and now you have 2 very well-known Democrats running for the same Dallas-based seat.
Yeah, one of probably the top race in North Texas. It's going to be, as you know, they're already, the gloves are off already. They're swinging at each other. This will be one of the most watched congressional races in the country, because, interestingly enough, Johnson replaced Allred in Congress in District 32, and now they're running against each other. Very fascinating development there.
And then you have the main show on the Democratic side in March, State Rep James Tallarico versus Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah, well, it was a 3-way race. Now it becomes pretty much a match race between Tallarico and Crockett. And this race will hinge on what kind of nominee Democrats want to run against the winner of the Republican race between Cornyn, Paxton, and Hunt. And it would be fascinating, one of the most watched races in the country.
All right, Democrats have not won a statewide race in Texas since the early 90s. Could 2026 be their year? Democratic strategist Matt Engel joins us next. Texans have heard for years now how Democrats are working to turn the state blue. Republicans, though, continue to win. Is anything going to be different in 2026? The director of the Lone Star Project, a Democratic PAC and strategist, Matt Engel, is here with us this morning. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Phil. Good to be here.
So we now have a Democratic primary between Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and State Representative James Tallarico. What are you going to be watching as this progresses? I mean, this race will be over in 2.5 months or so.
Yeah, it's a short fuse and it burns fast, so we will know pretty quickly. And what I am convinced is that whatever happens, the candidate that emerges will be stronger than they are now because they're going to compete with each other. It's going to be pretty vigorous. What I'm going to be looking for is the ability and the effort by each one to expand their support. That this is an election in which a lot of people are giving Democrats another look. A lot of people that have been maybe defaulting to Republicans or haven't been involved in politics, they're concerned about what's going on in the country, what's going on in the state, is giving them a reason to consider Democrats. And I think it's important that both Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico expand their appeal so they can bring in some of those new voters.
And when you talk about competition being good for the party, is there a line, though, if they start throwing mud at each other, is that counterproductive for them in November?
It sure can be, and that would be a mistake. In my view, the first one that slings mud is hurt, and if you keep slinging it, you could be hurt badly. I don't think you'll see much of that. I think both of them, by nature, are really looking to enthuse their base and try to expand it, and I think it'll really be a contest as to who can do that the most effectively.
Does this, building a coalition within the Democratic Party to get 50+1 on the Democratic primary, does that run through the Hispanic vote?
Well, Hispanics are really an important part of it, for sure. And but Democrats, it's one of the reasons it's so hard, is that we build a coalition. We don't just get everybody who thinks alike and get them to show up. That's the way Republicans win, usually from the right back to the middle. But it's Democrats, we have to pull together people who think of themselves as progressive, people who think of themselves as moderates, and people who think of themselves as conservative, but they're disillusioned with the leadership of the state. And so the key will be whether they can do that, and certainly Hispanics fall into each of those three categories. And a lot of people don't realize that. There are progressive Hispanics, moderate Hispanics, and conservative Hispanics. We need a disproportionate number of each one.
As a Democrat, do you want your candidate to run against Ken Paxton, John Cornyn, or Wesley Hunt, or does it matter?
Oh, well, I think we've got a chance to win against any of them, but any Democrat who's thinking straight believes and wants Ken Paxton to be their nominee.
The Attorney General.
Yeah, what that will mean is that Republicans in the state of Texas deliberately chose a stand-up criminal who's corrupt. I mean, Ken Paxton has proven over and over again that he's dishonest. He's dishonest with his colleagues. He's dishonest with the public. And it looks like, in my view, if you're asking me to predict, I think they will nominate him.
In Congressional District 33, it used to be a Democratic stronghold in Tarrant County. After Republicans changed the lines, it's now a Democratic stronghold in Dallas County. What are you going to be watching for in that race?
Well, again, I think that the district itself is the part of a map that's just a political crime. What Donald Trump and in his cowardice, Greg Abbott, in collapsing to him, have done to the state of Texas is just horrible from the standpoint of its effectiveness to have the strongest congressional delegation possible. Now the map's drawn. I think it's really an interesting race because both Colin Allred and Julie Johnson are well liked by the voters within that district. Both of them have served them very, very successfully. And so I think this is a campaign that really comes down to the tactics, kind of who has the strongest message, who does the best job in communicating with voters. And again, I think this is also one in which you don't want to go negative. You want to stay positive because the voters like both candidates.
And quickly, in the last 30 seconds, we've talked about the federal races, but do you see Democrats having any type of chance in the statewide races?
Well, certainly for the U.S. Senate. We talked about that. I think that Ken Paxton will be their nominee. I don't think John Cornyn's got a prayer. I've said and I believe that he's a dead senator walking. So I think that Democrats, if we nominate somebody who can build that broad coalition, we've got a chance to win the Senate race for sure.
Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, any
Well, our governor's candidate is very, very strong, Gina Hinojosa. It's whether or not she has enough money. If she can get the money to compete, I think that Abbott could be vulnerable. I certainly would look at the Attorney General's race.
It's an open seat.
Yeah, it's an open seat. Nathan Johnson here from Dallas is running, very strong candidate. If he's nominated, I think he definitely has a chance to win.
It's an uphill battle for all Democratic.
Sure. I mean, in Texas, it's a Republican-leaning seat. Democrats have to get some people who would otherwise default to Republicans to vote for Democrats.
All right, Matt Engel, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We'll stay on top of the key races each Sunday here on Lone Star Politics, and you can also track developments online at nbcdfw.com and at dallasnews.com. If you haven't registered to vote in the March 3rd Texas primary, that deadline is February 2nd. And that's all the time we have. Join us next Sunday for more Lone Star Politics.